Imagine for a moment that you're on your way home from Subway, when a witch leaps out of the bushes. You are cursed from this point on, and you may only play one Kirby game for the rest of your life. Which would you choose? Me? No hesitation, I'd choose Kirby in the Forgotten Land and wouldn't have a single regret for the rest of my life. Now I know that sounds like a pretty big statement, but allow me to explain myself. Forewarning though, the explanation is a bit of a mouthful. Hey guys, I'm Garrulous64, the Duke of Drastic Statements. I know in this YouTube game it's always like, this is the best game ever, or this is the worst game ever made and it's a crime against humanity. That's just how YouTube works sometimes, but in this instance, I am completely serious in saying that I think Kirby in the Forgotten Land might be Hal Labs' magnum opus. You'd think in a series like Kirby, where every game is hailed as being phenomenal or at least really good, that they would slip up at least once in the last 30 years, and I mean, clearly it was a fluke though, because look at what we have now. The big deal for this entry is, of course, the fully 3D gameplay, which is something Hal Labs had experimented with before in Kirby Planet Robobot's side mode, Kirby 3D Rumble. Later on, they would also go on to make Kirby's Blowout Blast, which is another 3D entry, and the former is one that is basically just a little score challenge side mode, but the latter is an expanded version of that with bosses and a much longer playtime. I always expected that these 3D experiments would yield a brand new 3D Kirby game with copy abilities in tow and all that good stuff, and that is exactly what we got. 5 years later. Now that might have sounded a little bit passive-aggressive, but I promise that's just how I talk. I'm very glad that they spent as much time as they did making this game, because they could have just dropped something half-baked and called it a day, but instead they let this thing cook to perfection. I also thought it was important to warn you right up front, there will be spoilers for this game in this video, but I'm going to give you plenty of warning before any of that happens. I also won't be going over any of the post-game in this video because I haven't finished it yet, but it is very big and it's very good. And hey, if you appreciate spoiler warnings, I don't know, maybe you could like subscribe down below, click the bell, maybe even click the join button, help support the channel. You know, I scratch your back, you scratch mine. Our story begins on a peaceful day in Planet Popstar where suddenly a massive evil death vortex appears in the sky. This happens way too often to these guys. I feel really bad for them. Like seriously, some death from above just shows up every week and Kirby's like, alright, I better jump on the warp star and start saving people because that's just what he do. Unfortunately though, Kirby must have used up all of his luck escaping death in World of Light because Kirby cannot escape the danger himself and is sucked into the vortex. Traveling through the vortex, Kirby's body ripples and distorts into strange shapes before he's knocked out and wakes up alone on a beach, farther from home than he's ever been. You know, probably. I mean, the place is called the Forgotten World, so it's like, I don't know, it's probably farther than Ripple Star. Unless it is just Ripple Star, and Nintendo hasn't confirmed that yet, because we all thought that was Earth, and now we think this is Earth, maybe, I don't know. Looking around his surroundings for the first time, he isn't sure what to make of things, but you know what they say about when the times get tough. The Kirby gets going. The starting area acts as your tutorial to get used to the moves that you've been using for years now. Kirby can jump, slide, inhale, exhale, jump, if I didn't mention that already, and he can also float. But the float is nerfed in this game so you don't fly over the entire thing because that would be really rude of you to fly over all this beautiful 3D geometry they created. I think the float works like, depending on where you start floating from, you can get to a certain height, then it's capped, because then if you go to a slightly higher area, you can go a little bit higher. It's not really that useful, truthfully, in this game. It's mostly used as something like you fall off an edge. You can kind of just float all the way back up and save yourself, but it's not even really that bad if you fall down into the pit because it doesn't kill you, it just kind of shaves off a little bit of your health. Let's talk difficulty because I think that's what a lot of people might be wondering about. Kirby games aren't typically the most difficult things in the world, and this game is also no exception. At the time of recording this, I've died approximately 3 times to damage alone, and every other death I had was either intentional to reset a puzzle, or it was like a timer running out in one of the challenge stages. And this isn't me being a gamer and flexing or anything, because clearly that is not a reason to flex. Wow, I've only died 3 times in a Kirby game. Come on, man, come get me. My point is, the game is not very challenging, even if you select the harder difficulty when you first start up the game. And honestly, I don't even know what the easier mode does to make the game easier, because it's not like it's too difficult to get around enemies most of the time anyway. Like, I'm pretty sure the devs went on record and said Nintendo was like, hey, you gotta put more enemies in this because it's not hard enough. And then the Kirby devs were like, oh, but we don't want to swarm Kirby with enemies. He's our precious baby boy and he doesn't deserve that. But guys, you kind of forget that, like, he defeats elder gods on the daily, and in this game you gave him a gun? So, like, I don't think he's gonna have any trouble. I think he's gonna be fine. Also thinking about it, though, if you had put a ton more enemies into this thing, it probably would have started looking like a really crappy Mario Maker level, so maybe it's for the best that it ended up like this. Going back to that bit about the gun, Kirby does have a slew of copy abilities in this game, but it's nothing along the lines of, like, Kirby Superstar, which actually has double the amount this game has. Fortunately, a lot of fan favorite copy abilities like Hammer, Sword, Cutter, Fire, those all return, and they make a glorious transition into 3D. And we also have two new powers in the form of Drill and Ranger, but I don't ever call it Ranger. I usually just end up calling it Gun, because that's what it is. I'm also not playing this up at all. Gun is actually my new favorite ability because it's a ton of fun to just start blasting at bosses until there's nothing left but dust. And I think it's probably a great moment to mention that I am not a serial killer, but Kirby absolutely is. Look at him go! Drill is a decent addition as well. It's just, I didn't end up using it nearly as much because most of its usefulness comes from digging up secrets or going under certain obstacles that you need to dig under. Other than that, I only really used it when I desperately needed a copy ability, but that also brings up the point that I actually went without a copy ability for a lot more of this game than I think any other game in the series. I think it's actually a lot of fun to use just regular Kirby for most of these bosses, because it does even the playing field a little bit, otherwise you're just like mercilessly attacking these guys at all times. I don't know, I'm nothing if not fair. To make up for the smaller amount of abilities, each one is able to be upgraded at least once to give it more power and also some new moves. You're also able to set your preferred version of this power-up, so whenever you inhale the enemy of the corresponding type in the field, you get that version of the power. That's a really nice touch because I was a little worried at first that I would have to go back to the copy ability shack to actually get the one I want, but thankfully that is not the case. Literally everything in this game is thought perfectly well ahead, and I really appreciate that. In a surprising turn of events also, it's not the easiest thing in the world to upgrade all these abilities, because you will need these special power stones and a bunch of star coins. The star coins are very easy to come by because you can grind those out easily in the stages you play, but the power stones only show up in the new challenge stages, and those things actually live up to their names pretty well. All over the world map, you'll see these little star-shaped rifts, and once you enter them, you get a specific power-up, and you use that power-up to complete the challenge they lay out for you. And some of these things can get a little bit intense, so if you're not going for full game completion, these are pretty much optional. But guess again, nerd, there's no casuals in Kirby, 100% or die. Oh, hey look, it's the plot, I almost forgot about that. After running around the first level, Kirby finds this abandoned shack, and within there are some cute little dog things that immediately start to attack him. Going into self-defense mode, Kirby inhales and ends up pulling a nearby car into his black hole of a stomach. But he is actually unable to swallow the entire car, and whatever the vortex did to him actually gives him the ability to control this thing and drive around like he owns the place. Very interesting that now both Mario and Kirby have the ability to, like, possess things all of a sudden. Maybe it's a side effect of the Nintendo Switch. It's here we meet everyone's favorite new Kirby form, Kirby, which is part of the new gimmick in this game, Mouthful mode. You're able to drive around and see how the car controls, which is good, by the way. I do like how it controls, until Kirby finally comes to a bridge area and a radio that starts playing a vocal theme that Nintendo actually did a really good job of hiding from us. I just gotta say, it's really cute watching Kirby, like, dance around a little bit before he starts driving, and then he gets to take in all the new sights of this forgotten world. Sights like a bunch of Waddle Dees being kidnapped by crazy crows. Yeah, that'll teach him for being so damn adorable. Kirby rolls up to where he thinks all this chaos is originating from, and he comes across a very un-Waddle Dee-like character that looks like they might smell vaguely of mint, but I can't confirm this because 4D gaming is not really catching on. Using a nearby sword to slaughter more little forest creatures, Kirby frees the Bab, and he says his name is Elfilin, and he promises not to betray and try and kill us once we reach the final world. His words, not mine. I'm sorry, Magolor really destroyed my trust. Kirby agrees to help save all of the captured Waddle Dees, and therefore our main collectible is upon us. Throughout the stages, Kirby will have to complete certain objectives that will either lead you directly to a caged Waddle Dee, or they will simply just tell you that you saved another one by, you know, making 5 flowers bloom. I guess that Waddle Dee might have been a botanist back in Dreamland? Good for him. Each Waddle Dee you save ends up taking refuge back in the very cleverly named Waddle Dee Town, where after you collect a certain amount of Waddle Dees, new structures will spring up, such as a coliseum, a cafe, Kirby's house. They build an Arby's at some point, I'm sure. Most of these buildings come with some extra content, whether it being able to buy certain items that'll help Kirby along the way. The Coliseum has boss rush stuff, and then Kirby's house, you can kind of just walk in and watch Kirby sleep, and it's not weird. It sounds weird, but it's not. It's actually just adorable. You know what is weird, though? I've been thinking in the back of my head, like, over the last 30 years of Kirby games, Kirby's been, like, ruthlessly butchering Waddle Dees in every game up to this point, and now we get to this one, and they're all just like,
"Hey, Kirby, you're my friend, huh?"
And I don't know, it just kind of strikes me as a little weird that they could forgive and forget that quickly. I mean, don't get me wrong, I like it this way, because the Waddle Dees are adorable, and they're some of my favorite designs in the whole game. But it'd kind of be like if Mario was, like, rescuing Goombas in the next Mario game, and they were all like, "Oh, Mario, you're so cool, dude! Thanks for not crushing my entire family." I don't know, maybe it's just me. I feel maybe this is like repentance for Kirby or something. There's one more thing I gotta call out here, because I think a lot of people might be going like, why do the Waddle Dees need a cafe? Do they build it just for Kirby? Like, they don't have mouths, they can't eat. Well, you are incorrect and clearly have never watched the Kirby anime, because they can eat, and it's terrifying. Everything Kirby related is good. Like, literally, even the anime is amazing. Like, I don't know how they did it. They haven't done a turn-based RPG. I would like to try that. A Kirby turn-based RPG would probably be really cool. Plus, I'd probably be able to have DDD on my team, and you know I wouldn't pass that up. Since every level has several objectives that are only obscured once you find out what they are, you're probably going to be replaying a lot of the stages over and over until you get everything settled. Thankfully, yet again, the devs thought ahead, and you're able to buy special power-ups for Kirby that can increase his health, attack power, and speed to make these replays a little bit easier on you. From the perspective of someone who does not like backtracking very much, this is a very welcomed addition, and it made these revisits a lot more tolerable. Plus, the stages themselves aren't usually that long, so it's like, I don't know, I don't really have too much of a problem with playing the stages because I kind of want to go faster each time anyway. It's a very fun game to try and speed through. In fact, I think I've seen a couple people speedrunning it on Twitch already, and it's under 2 hours now, I think? That's the world record? Damn, guys, I'm still playing the game. It's been days. To take a break from all the gameplay stuff for just a sec, I think I can mention one thing here that I wasn't a huge fan of, and that was the story. I know that's not the main point of a game, but I do like story in my video games, and it's a little disappointing to me that after this very first stage where you find out all this junk and then meet up with Elflin, there's just really no story progression until like the 4th world. And of course the gameplay is stellar, which is great. Like, I'm obviously gonna keep playing. But like, if you look back at Kirby 64, sometimes they had those cute little cutscenes right in the middle of levels where, you know, they find Adeline and they help her out, or they find King Dedede or Waddle Dee and they get those guys to come along on the adventure, and they all hang out and stuff, and it's really cute and feels like a nice little character building moment, even though there's no dialogue. They could have really used those little mid-level or after-level cutscenes, because Elflin really doesn't do anything. He doesn't point you towards missing Waddle Dees, he doesn't help you achieve your transformations. He just kind of like floats around and looks cute, which, in my opinion, he does very well, but like, we already have Kirby to do that, so I think Elflin has to step up his game a little bit. And I guess there's also the underlying feeling that he might betray me at some point, so I was kind of not trying to get attached, but that might just be on me. Speaking of transformations, by the way, Mouthful mode, I haven't gone too in-depth with that yet. We have a ton of transformations that kind of take the place of other copy abilities. In my previous Kirby video, the Kirby Gimmicks thing, I appreciate you guys watching that, by the way, that means a lot. I was kind of worried that it might end up like the super abilities from Kirby's Return to Dreamland, where it's super situational and they don't get a lot of use. Or, you know, even in Triple Deluxe and Planet Robobot, let's say, I think Triple Deluxe could have used Hypernova a bit more, but I'm very happy to say that Mouthful mode is used a lot and in a lot of creative ways. You, of course, have the car ability, which speeds around, and you're able to do a whole bunch of, like, racing and time trial challenges, which are probably my favorite in the entire game. You have things like the air shooting ability. I don't even know what to call it really, like ring mouth, I think they call it. And you can use it to like blow enemies away, destroy things, spin windmills, move a boat. There's the light bulb, which lights up dark areas and can charge batteries on certain devices, which I wasn't like super huge on, but like they only used it twice, so I wasn't too bent out of shape about it. You got the archway that lets you do these cool little like flying sections. You've got the water balloon ability that lets you clean up things just like Mario's Sunshine, except, you know, without all of the garbage from that game that I don't enjoy. That's what we call foreshadowing. For next week. And the list goes on. All I'm saying is, these things get a lot of use, they show up a lot throughout the game, and they're definitely not squandered like I was worried they'd be. A lot of them are also optional for the most part, so you don't need to use them, and that's fine. Like, because if you're running through the level because you're trying to look for a certain thing, you don't have to use them. But so many of them are so fun to use, I ended up retreading these steps anyway because I liked how they controlled and I just liked using them, especially if the car was involved. Alright guys, it is now spoiler o'clock. You are going to want to skip to this timestamp if you don't want the rest of the game to be spoiled for you, and I really recommend you play it yourself before you watch this. But hey, do come back and watch the rest of the video because it's gonna be real funny. World 4 rolls around and it is an ice world. Usually those are not my favorite, but this time around it's just this gigantic city of London looking place that's all frozen over, and it actually has some of my favorite stages in the entire game, which I was not expecting. More importantly though, the boss fight, yeah guys, it's the return of the King DDD Don't Get Possessed for 5 Minutes challenge. Difficulty? Literally impossible. I mean, clearly they always possess him because he is so wonderful and powerful and perfect in every single way, so like, I understand at least. Kirby and DDD start having one of their trademark brawls, and DDD's moves from 2D end up translating into the 3D space really, really well, and I had a smile on my face the entire time. It was amazing, but halfway through the fight, DDD drops his hammer, jumps up onto the Coliseum wall, and just tears a column out of that thing and starts trying to beat you to death with it. And I'm just like, what can't this man do? This man, look at him. He's swatting at you. He's gonna clobber that Kirby, all right. But unfortunately, even with his new powers of badassery, King DDD cannot beat his rival and goes unconscious. Kirby, the Waddle Dees, and Elflin celebrate their victory, and King DDD comes to and pledges to help Kirby save the rest of the Waddle Dees from their capture. Hey, wait a minute. He didn't stop being possessed after one battle. That must be some heavy-duty magic or something. Yeah, I mean, I know that man. He would not do this. He learned his lesson after the food thing. He's a pretty good guy now. He's just a little misguided sometimes. From this point until the final world, Elflin is no longer with you, and there's also no story progression until the final world. The final world being this Crisis City-ass place, and you do a boss rush, and then we meet up with King DDD again, and he's got a mask on, and you know that he means business when he's got a mask on. He's also going by Forgo DDD now, which sounds pretty badass, but also I don't think means anything at all. So don't worry about it too much. The first part of the fight is pretty much identical to the earlier fight. The second phase of this fight, we get a more traditional masked DDD theme as he starts galloping around on all fours like some kind of feral beast. He also managed to watch Avatar: The Last Airbender once and can now shoot fire out of his hands, so he's a threat to be messed with. What does that mean? So he's a real threat. You're not gonna wanna mess around at this point because you're gonna get burned. I'm also not very worried about DDD like biting or scratching you though and giving you rabies, because like he's a penguin. Like, he doesn't have claws, he doesn't have teeth, right? Like, what's he gonna do? He's gonna gnaw on you? Ugh, gross. Finally though, after Forgo DDD is defeated, he comes back to his senses, gives Kirby a little happy smile and nod, which I thought was adorable, and him, Kirby, and the Waddle Dees start heading towards the elevator to get out of there. But unfortunately for them, the Beast Pack is pissed, dude, and they come after them. A Waddle Dee ends up tripping on the way to the elevator, and seeing one of his subjects in danger, King DDD rushes back on his own, valiantly throws him back into the elevator, and then stands to face the Beast Pack while the others escape, all on his own. And like, I know he can do it because he's obviously a powerhouse and perfect and amazing, but like, it is a very dramatic scene, and I was a little bit worried about him because he did just get beaten up by Kirby, so he must not be at full power. This elevator ride is where things started like f***ing with my head a little bit, because on the ride up you have this very like calming but also unnerving audio recording talking about human society and like an alien invader coming down that they captured to do experiments on, and then they used that invader to create new technology for themselves, and that's why there's no humans on the planet. They all discovered warp technology and just f***ed off. This is the part where I was like, oh my god, are they about to pull like a Kirby has been to Earth, or like he's some kind of crazy government experiment gone wrong? And you know, the whole ride up I was like, what are they about to show me? Then I walk into the throne room and it's actually just Elflin and his second half that looks like some creepy green gooey fetus thing. I'm gonna be completely honest with you. At this point, I had forgotten I was looking for Elflin because I just didn't care. And I know that might sound harsh, but they didn't really make me care about him throughout this game. Like, he's been gone for several worlds, And I was more invested in saving King Dedede at this point because, I mean, obviously I care about that man a great deal. But like, I don't know, I'm not even sorry that I forgot, you know? Kirby also comes face to face with the leader of the Beast Pack here, Alex the Lion, who tries to defeat Kirby, but Kirby just kind of throws him aside casually because he is but a lion and Kirby is a god. Turns out the possession actually went farther than just King Dedede. The entire Beast Pack was actually under Elflin's other half's control because he was trying to get Elflin back to merge together and become the ultimate life form. And when I heard them refer to this as the ultimate life form, I started having like Sonic Adventure 2 flashbacks, and I mean, I guess that was okay, because Sonic Adventure 2 is pretty good. Seeing as his plan failed, the thing in the tank breaks free and starts absorbing a ton of the beasts in the room and transforms into this disgusting Lovecraftian slime monster that goes by Fecto Forgo, which is a very strange name, and I wanted to make sure I got that right, because it's just weird. But you know what? It fits it really well, because as it's chasing Kirby and Elflin down the hallway, it's got all these disgusting slime squelching noises coming after you, and it's not a hard boss, but it did evoke a lot of like horror game shit to me. Like I thought of this is not a horror game, by the way. I thought a lot about the final boss from the Spider-Man PS1 and PC game, where Doc Ock has merged with Carnage, and he's chasing you down a hallway yelling, "Die, die, die!" And it's like, yeah, I was a kid when I played that. It was scary. And they're also both dealing with weird alien slime. So that's another comparison right there. Upon defeating the slime monster, it ends up actually grabbing Elflin and recombining with him, therefore turning into a much less intimidating looking Neopet-esque creature. And I gotta say, I think the slime thing was a little bit more intimidating, but this guy is certainly very powerful. And that also shows in the gameplay, because going from like a sliding scale like Goramongo to, I think its name is Fecto Elephant, I hate Elflin's name. It's so annoying to say because it's got like so many weird eyes in different places. Anyway, going from Goramongo to Fecto Elephant. What I'm trying to say is the bosses get a lot harder over the course of the game. So like at the beginning, it's like, wow, this is a breeze, a spring breeze even. And then by this point, I actually died. This is where one of my deaths happened. Then in my second attempt, I realized how good the dodge roll feature is that I hadn't been using the entire game. Because when you dodge an attack at the perfect time, the game like slows down at the bullet time as Kirby like dodges out of the way, and you just don't take damage anymore. Like, I think the first time I was taking so much damage that I died. But then the second time I was dodging all away everything, and I think I had a ton of health by the time I actually beat the boss. Kirby manages to remove Elephant from the creature, and then the base creature starts falling apart and disintegrating, sort of like Majin Buu or something. It starts like dripping with this gross goo. But he's not done yet. This dude is so powerful that he opens up a rift in time and space and starts throwing the entirety of Planet Popstar at Kirby, Waddle Dee, and Elephant. And it's like, uh-oh guys, this might be a problem, but unfortunately, Fecto Elephant forgot to check if Optimus Prime was around. Using the final Mouthful ability, Kirby, Elephant, and Waddle Dee, if you're playing co-op, start driving through this very Into the Spider-Verse looking scene and jumping over buildings and crashing through debris from Popstar and the Forgotten World until they finally get right up into Fecto's grill and he gets pushed back, and then Elephant busts out this power that I guess he was just sitting on. You know, he probably could have helped us during the story, but, you know, let's forget about that. Kirby and Elephant plow right through this dude Dragon Ball Z style, destroying him for good and landing back on Planet Popstar. I know people always are like, wow, Kirby's baby game. I don't give a shit. That was cool as fuck. They always have amazing endings for these games. Like, they're all cool. Like, I don't care what people say. These games are awesome. Back on Popstar, things are not actually as peachy as they might seem though, because the rift is still there and the two worlds are still colliding. So, in a last-ditch effort to save everyone, Elephant goes back through the portal and uses what's left of his power to close the rift between dimensions forever. Of course, upsetting Kirby a great deal in the process because his friend is probably either in mortal danger or dead. But then they get rid of that fake-out ending, a light shines behind Kirby, and suddenly the Forgotten Land and Popstar are now connected by a different portal, or maybe they've merged in some way. It's not very clear. All we know is Kirby, King Dedede, Meta Knight, Waddle Dee, all of them are seen in the ending, taking pictures together with the Beast Pack that is no longer, you know, trying to kill them. And it's a very, very sweet, happy ending in which you finally return back to Waddle Dee Town, and that is where I'm going to stop covering things because I said I wouldn't spoil anything in the post-game. Okay, maybe just one thing. King Dedede comes to town and he just kind of chills. That's the best reward I could have ever hoped for. So that's pretty much everything I wanted to cover when it comes to Kirby and the Forgotten Land, and get ready for some extremely high praise because I'm about to say some really blasphemous shit. Hal Labs took one of the most popular gaming franchises Nintendo has, Kirby, right? One of the most well-loved things. And they jumped into a new dimension and made a 10 out of 10 game with all of the love and care and finesse that they have always had for the rest of this series. And I would put it on par with Mario's transition to 3D and Zelda's transition to 3D. I think it is that good. Sure, it is a good 20-something years after those transitions to 3D, but I still think this holds the same amount of weight of taking what was once 2D and incredible and turning it into something that is 3D and incredible. And I would even go as far as to say it is endlessly enjoyable with the fact that there are so many things to do. There's multiplayer, and like I said, it's really fun to run through really quickly, so it's a very good speed game too. This game is definitely the full package, and I think it's not just one of the best Kirby games, period. I think this is one of the best games on the Nintendo Switch as a whole. And that's a really big statement because we have things like Breath of the Wild, Mario Odyssey, I don't want to count ports, but I would say Mario Kart 8, Smash Ultimate, and Pokemon Legends Arceus. Like, that game came out this year too. Like, imagine two games I consider extremely good and the pinnacle of their franchise came out within a couple months of each other. Like, come on. Like, anyone who is in the past going like, wow, the Switch is dead and it's stupid and bad and shit, I do agree that it's a very underpowered system. The graphical capabilities are very lacking. But there are some of the best games we've ever had, I think ever, on this system over the last 5 years, and we also just got an update that added folders so we can sort games. So Switch fans are winning now, baby. My hair bad, no, oh no, f***. Welcome one and all to the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed what you saw, and if you did, please let me know down in the comments below that you made it all the way here, because now you're in the secret club. Not a whole lot of people make it here, so pat yourself on the back. And if you like this video and you haven't already, please make sure you subscribe, click the bell, follow my Twitter, and join the Discord to keep up with more reviews and other things that aren't reviews, because I do a lot of things. I'd also like to give a huge thank you to my current supporters, who are Chaotic Mercenary, Brady Hilkemeyer, Mimic, Noah Wisbios, Danny Lee Dauber, Minty, Tylo Tech Guy, Jeremy, Dax, T-Bone APH, Crystal, PM13, Chaos, Dork in a Hat, Mega Traffic Cone. And on Patreon we have Takayaki Chow, Noah Wisbios, and John the Real Wawa Luigi. Thank you guys so much for supporting, it really means a lot, and also a huge thank you to everyone in the $1 tiers. Remember, even $1 can help a lot and gets you access to a whole bunch of members-only videos that you can see by clicking the join button below or the card up there. There's a lot of those. There's like 30-something of them, and I will get back to making more of those eventually. But anyway, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys next time.